Sword of Atlas is a tactical role-playing game where the players take control of a party of travelers pitted against AI opponents, where fast-paced decision-making meets grid-based combat in a world where your actions determine the fate of your party. That's a lot of words to say. We are taking a turn meter action system, putting it on a grid, and playing it out in real time. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's Sword of Atlas developer interview. We are talking to our systems team today. So these three, as well as Jonah, who couldn't make it this week, have been working on setting up all of the systems and the abilities and the stats. And so we're going to talk through a lot of what their process has been like and how it's kind of iterated over time. So we'll start off by having everyone introduce themselves, maybe with Will.
Yeah, hey guys, my name's Will Strohmeyer. I'm the systems lead on Sword of Atlas.
I'm Renee, Linford. I work on the systems team developing skills. And then I also do some other things for some of the other strike teams, but that's what I do for systems.
Hi everyone, I'm the system team. I'm developing skills and combat balancing thing for the team.
We wanted to start off today by talking about what our original plans were for the systems in Sword of Atlas. Quite a few months ago is when we kind of started this process. So I thought we'd start with Will and maybe have Will talk a little bit about what those original plans were, what the original design docs might have looked like, and what you envisioned the systems would be.
You know, when you start with a project like this, it's really kind of like an open sandbox. You know, there's so much different stuff you can do with progression in RPG. I think the first place we started was just trying to give each character some sort of like identity that the player could play around with. So I think one of our like earliest iterations was having like the ability to choose a character's weapon, like sword, lance, or axe, for example. And then off of that, also allow them to choose the skills they'd use. So the idea was really that the player could mix and match all these different types of assets that define their characters. But with projects like these, that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time and effort to build menus to support that stuff and upscale the balancing as well. We had to cut back a bit. I think it's in a pretty decent state right now.
Renee, maybe turning it to you, what does it look like today, and what's the current plan?
Currently, we've gone with a more scaled back approach, like Will said. We're just kind of making each of the different skill sets feel unique to that class and feel really good. Each character class, we've got 4 classes, and each of those classes have 3 skills each. So rather than making it more complicated, we decided to just make it really polished and feel good.
Since we've scaled everything back, how have you focused on keeping these skills interesting and unique? What's been your focus?
So before we design like each skills, we will have like a design doc for a character, right? For a class. We'll think about like how this character will do in the battle in a combat. For example, White Mage may do healing, so that's like major ability for this class. So we will have like 2 healing skills for this class, and then we'll have like a secondary ability or job for this class. For example, the White Mage, which is called like curative arts now, will have like a stun skill to support other attackers. So that's how we design the skill for those class.
Was there ever like an intentional choice where you sat down and said, this is going to be way too hard, we have to cut this down?
There's kind of like a misconception, like I think players playing RPGs where it seems as simple as just like, well, just add a skill tree, or just add some sort of way for the player to, personalize their characters. And the thing that's sort of hard to realize at first is that the more flexibility you give the player, that's actually tied to a string of the more assets you have to create and the more work that everybody has to do, not just the systems team. What Renee touched on was, sort of the key to that is that we really focus on polish instead. Instead of creating, a lot of things that wouldn't feel as great, we've focused on a few things that work really, really well.
When we were looking at like how to start off, and we wanted to start with the basic kind of classes that you might see in an RPG. So you got that archer, warrior, healer, and then a ranged mage. And it worked out well because with our party size being like three, to have a little bit of ability to kind of choose which of those classes you're going to use in combat.
I feel like our characters have more identity because of sort of the skills they're restricted to. You know, it's a weird phenomenon in game development when your constraints actually work in your favor. And the fact that we've ended up with, you know, this select pool of skills really helps like the narrative itself, give each character, you know, this own feel, this own identity. When you click on them, you know, like each one plays differently and has a different set of actions available to them.
What's been the most exciting thing for you in this process?
I mean, I can just go ahead and say barrage.
Barrage.
Yeah, being able to kill anything is pretty fun. No, we'll get to that. Barrage is kind of like a legitimate answer alongside like bleeding wounds and sort of other ranged skills. I sort of love those like formations when I play games and like other tactics games where I can set up my characters in a way that suits their ranges.
I totally agree. Yeah, even just as a player, I love the concept of like, I know where I want Greg to be, like just the kind of tactical nature of all that. So I'm sure designing for that is even more fun.
I pretty like the ATB part and the ATB action mode. You are like playing real-time game, but still like strategy skills. Our skills are pretty simple. There's no like complex mechanism. Like it's kind of because we're playing a real-time action game, so we don't want make player like thinking about 10 seconds for the skill.
I just love playing with malediction. I think it's a really fun thing, the idea of like, oh, if I curse this enemy and then they die, then it will just shoot out and damage all these other enemies around it. Knowing that I have multiple enemies that are coming, I can be like, okay, I'm gonna hit this one with malediction and then I'm gonna hit him with another and it's gonna kill him and then it's just gonna damage all of them.
Wanted to thank the systems team for taking the time to talk to us, Will, Renee, and Xiaofei. So we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Always appreciate these.
Okay, thanks. This was fun.